Today we're talking about Intercom. Here's a strange fact to start with. The company that would eventually sell to Salesforce for $3.6 billion didn't start as a customer service business at all. It started as a side project, a tool 4 founders built because they had no good way to talk to their own customers. And by the end of this story, that side project won't just have become the main business. It will have absorbed the entire company, forced a rebrand, and rewritten its own pricing model to survive the biggest technology shift in a generation. This is a story about what happens when a company keeps listening past the point where most companies stop. Let's go back to the beginning. Part 1. The problem nobody was solving. Around 2010, if you were a customer trying to reach a company online, the experience was reliably impersonal. You'd get a no-reply email address, a canned response, a ticket number, maybe a promise that your case would auto-close in 10 days whether or not anyone had actually helped you. It was efficient, it was optimized, and it had almost no human being in it anywhere. In Dublin, 4 engineers and designers, Owen McCabe, Des Traynor, Kieran Lee, and David Barrett, were living a version of this problem from the inside. They ran a crash monitoring tool for web apps called Exceptional. They had paying customers. But they had almost no real way to talk to those customers. Their entire record of who was using the product was a clunky export they had to wrangle by hand just to send out a batch email, so they built something small to fix their own problem. An internal tool that let them message users directly inside the product to ask a simple question. What should we build next? That tool, not the crash monitoring software, turned out to be the interesting part of the business. In 2011, they sold Exceptional, took the proceeds, moved to San Francisco, and started over. The mission this time was deliberately broad: make internet business personal. Intercom was born. Part 2. Breaking the rules on purpose. Here's where the story gets strategically interesting. The prevailing wisdom in Silicon Valley at the time was blunt. You cannot build a large software company by selling only to small and mid-sized businesses. Investors told McCabe exactly that. Intercom ignored the advice. And instead of rushing to build an enterprise sales team, they leaned into something almost nobody would recommend today: hands-on, unscalable, deeply personal marketing. Des Traynor would handwrite outreach to former Exceptional customers. Not templated outreach, personalized outreach, sometimes going as far as mocking up what Intercom would actually look like running on that specific recipient's website. No drip campaigns, no automation, just one human conversation at a time. That mattered for a reason beyond the individual sale. Every rejection and every conversion came back to the founders directly, and that feedback shaped what they built the very next day. The market was giving them a live signal, and they were close enough to hear it. They paired that hands-on outreach with a quiet, elegant growth loop. A small "We run on Intercom" link, tucked into every chat widget on every customer's website. Every customer became a tiny billboard. Every billboard became a new lead. The combination worked. Against the conventional logic of the time, Intercom grew fast, reaching roughly $50 million in annual recurring revenue within just a few years. Part 3. When growth runs out of road. But growth doesn't compound forever on its own, and Intercom eventually hit a wall. The company had been selling itself as one horizontal platform for all business communication. As it expanded, that pitch got muddy. And here's the deeper issue. Nobody wakes up in the morning wanting a communication platform. They wake up needing to capture a lead, onboard a new user, clear a support queue that's piling up. Intercom turned to a framework that would end up reshaping the entire company. Clayton Christensen's jobs to be done theory. The core idea, famously illustrated by his milkshake study, is that customers don't really buy products. They hire them to do a specific job. Intercom went and asked its customers directly what job they were actually hiring the software to do. And based on those answers, it shifted its marketing away from personas, marketer, support rep, product manager, and toward outcomes. Acquiring customers, engaging users, supporting them. Now this is the part that separates a real strategic shift from a marketing gimmick. Intercom didn't just change its messaging, it changed its product to match. The company unbundled its single monolithic platform into distinct products, each one mapped to one of those jobs. What it sold now matched the story it told. At the same time, Intercom made a quieter but equally important bet on content. Instead of pushing CTA-heavy sales collateral, it published genuinely useful material. Books on product management, a long-running blog, podcasts. It wasn't chasing leads directly, it was earning an audience. And that turned out to be a compounding advantage. Owning the industry's conversation let Intercom position itself as the thoughtful, premium option in an increasingly crowded category, a position that's much harder for competitors to buy their way into than a feature list is. Part 4. The drift. No company stays sharp forever by accident, and Intercom is a good illustration of that too. In 2020, McCabe stepped down as CEO and moved into the chairman's role. Karen Peacock took over and roughly doubled revenue from about $100 million to $200 million. A genuinely strong run. But growth slowed. Headcount swelled past 1,000 people. And slowly, the company drifted toward becoming exactly the kind of bloated, enterprise-heavy, contract-enforcing operation its founders had originally set out to replace. In October 2022, the board asked McCabe to come back. He did, and the turnaround was blunt, not gentle. Roughly 13% of the workforce was cut. Layers of overhead were stripped out. The company's values were rewritten so they functioned as actual operating rules rather than words on a wall, tied directly to how performance was managed. Within a year, the company reported a sharp rebound in engineering output and morale, with a smaller team doing more. The ship was righted. But righting the ship isn't the same as knowing where to sail it next. That answer arrived from outside the company in late November 2022, when OpenAI launched ChatGPT. Part 5. Betting the company on its own disruption. Intercom's leadership understood almost immediately what generative AI meant for their industry. Customer service at its core had always run on a simple equation: how much support volume comes in, multiplied by how long each case takes to handle, divided by how many humans you employ. AI threatened to drive that handling time towards zero, which meant it threatened to rewrite the entire formula the business was built on. Most companies in that position protect what they have. Intercom tore up its roadmap instead. It declared it would go head-to-head with established players like Zendesk, and in March 2023 it launched Fin, an AI customer service agent first built on OpenAI's GPT-4, later drawing on Anthropic's models, and eventually running on Apex, a model Intercom trained itself specifically for support work to reduce its dependence on outside providers. Here's the tension that makes this story worth telling. Intercom's revenue came largely from selling seats to human support agents. An AI that resolved tickets without a human being involved meant customers would need fewer of those seats. Fin was, quite literally, hostile to the business model that had built the company. And instead of protecting that legacy revenue, Intercom leaned into the disruption. It rebuilt its pricing from the ground up. No more charging per seat. Instead, a flat fee, starting at 99 cents, charged only when Fin actually resolved a customer's query. Intercom stopped selling access to software and started selling completed work. Customers didn't have to model out the ROI of another subscription. They simply paid for outcomes. The bet paid off at scale. Fin grew to more than 30,000 business customers, with Salesforce later. Citing an average resolution rate of around 76% of incoming requests handled without any human intervention at all. Part 6. The rebrand and the record deal. The transformation reached its natural conclusion in 2026. In May, the company retired the Intercom name entirely and rebranded as Fin, after the product that had become its true center of gravity. Weeks later, in June, Salesforce announced an agreement to acquire Fin for approximately $3.6 billion, folding its customer agent technology and proprietary model into the Agentforce platform. The deal, expected to close in the fourth quarter of Salesforce's fiscal 2027, stands as the largest acquisition ever involving an Irish-founded technology company. A long way from a business valued at $1 billion back in 2018. An even longer way from a small internal tool built to talk to a few hundred users. Part 7. What this story actually teaches. A few lessons here outlast the category Intercom competed in. Market to the job, not the persona. Titles and demographics are proxies, nothing more for what someone is actually trying to accomplish. When Intercom aligned its messaging and its product packaging to the real jobs customers were hiring it for, it removed friction from the entire buying process. Done well, marketing doesn't just describe a product. It can dictate how that product gets built and sold. Content can be a compounding moat. Intercom didn't just build a chat widget. It built something closer to a media operation. Educating a market rather than hard selling it builds loyalty over time. And ownership of the narrative is most of what premium positioning actually is. Price for outcomes, not access. As AI absorbs more of the actual work, seat-based software pricing starts to look fragile. Customers have always cared about results, not licenses. Pricing eventually has to follow that truth. And cannibalize yourself before the market does it for you. Defending legacy revenue against a genuine technological shift is usually just a slow form of suicide. Intercom's willingness to ship a product that openly threatened its own income is a large part of why it had a future left to sell. Conclusion. The line from that first internal messaging tool to a multi-billion-dollar Salesforce deal isn't that Intercom invented online customer communication. Plenty of companies were building chat tools at the same time. What set Intercom apart is that it kept letting an honest read of what customers actually wanted reshape both its marketing and its product. And at the moment that mattered most, it was willing to burn down its own business model to build the next one. Product market fit was never a finish line for this company. It was a moving target. And Intercom's arc suggests that the companies that last are the ones still willing to rewrite their own rules as the ground shifts beneath them. This was the marketing behind rapid growth. See you in the next episode.